All right, guys. First of all, I just want to say Happy New Year. It's good to be in 2026 finally, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward this year. Nintendo Switch 2 was only out for half of the year of 2025, but yet that did not stop it from dominating and outselling the PlayStation 5, outselling Xbox, kicking PC gaming's ass and everything like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the year of 2026. And it's going to be very interesting to see what Nintendo Directs we get, what new games get revealed. I can't wait. I'm very excited for it. I think 2025 was a very good year for us Nintendo fans. And I think Nintendo, despite having only 6 months in, at least the Nintendo Switch 2, they pretty much dominated PlayStation for the entire year anyways, regardless. But with all that out of the way, I do want to talk about the next Metroid game. What is going to be the next Metroid game? Some people think we might actually get a new 2D Metroid game this year, or anytime soon. Not really sure, but that would be awesome to see a sequel to Metroid Dread, or to see, Metroid 6, since Metroid Dread actually is Metroid 5. So I think that would be great. There's also been some talk and rumor about Metroid Dread getting a Switch 2 edition. Now, if that is true, I think it would be a missed opportunity if they do not add in online multiplayer for the Switch 2 edition. I think that should be what they do, and I think this would be a good selling point for the game. I think people are going to argue that, that's going to make people who bought the Switch 1 version angry. Yeah, whatever, who cares? They're making a new, better version. And you know what? It probably doesn't have to it's not like they got to buy the entire game all over again. They don't have to do that. When it comes to these Nintendo Switch 2 editions, you typically, if you have the game already, you can upgrade it for like $10, maybe $20 or so. So I think that would be really freaking awesome if they did that. I think it would be awesome if they came out with a Switch 2 edition and they made it to where there's now online play and there's some really fun modes in the game. Like maybe a mode where it's you four versus another four, but it's not as simple as just you guys shooting each other up and killing each other. You guys have to reach a certain goal, a certain objective, or maybe you have to escape from the entire map. Maybe you have to extract something. It could be something really cool, really fun and engaging like that. And of course, the more areas you unlock, the more likely you're going to run into the enemy players and engage in combat. So that would be a really cool idea for online multiplayer for Metroid Dread. I would really like to see them implement something cool like that to the game. So I think we're definitely getting a Switch 2 edition of that game. That's a game that sold 3 million copies, so it's still the best-selling Metroid game. And who knows, it's probably going to remain that way. I don't know if Metroid Prime 4 is going to sell more than 3 million or even get close to it, because of the fact that they just did not give us enough of a reason to, go back and visit that game. And so, unfortunately, it's a game that should have been way better, and that's like the most people are saying about the game. It's a great game, but it should have been better. So it's very unfortunate, but we're definitely not getting a Metroid Prime game anytime soon. People do believe there's going to be a Metroid Prime 5. That would be awesome. That would be really great if we do get a Metroid Prime 5, but it's not going to be anytime soon. A lot of people in my last Metroid related video, you guys go check that video out if you hadn't already. People were actually hinting to the idea of Monolith Soft being the next ones to work on Metroid Prime. Now, obviously it can't just be Monolith Soft being the only ones, because they don't really have a track record when it comes to first person shooters or anything, but they do have the best track record when it comes to open world games or implementing open world to games. Now, before people out there freak out, no, I'm not saying that Metroid Prime 5 has to be an open world game, but the world does need to be bigger and better, and it does need to be a lot more immersive. So I think it would be awesome if Monolith Soft Studios did work alongside Retro Studios in order to make the world bigger, in order to add some open world elements to it, which could be, some big battlefields out there taking place where there's a lot of fighting and action going on. Similar to the game Rage. If you guys never played Rage, I guess just look it up. That's a game that it's not open world. Rage 2 was, and Rage 2 sucked, but the first Rage game on Xbox 360, that was not an open world game. Not an open world game at all, but it had some open world sandbox elements to it, and I think they did that. I think the way they handled that game was perfect. So more like an open world sandbox type game where the world's bigger. There's certain areas that are much bigger and broader, but it still has that linear maze-like level design that the Metroid games normally have. And I think it would be great if, Monolith Soft could make it to where you're able to explore other planets or whatever, or you're able to even get in a spaceship and fly to these other planets. And you have to select certain regions on that planet to fly to, and it just shows you a cutscene of you flying to it. And then once you get there, there's, you can see a battlefield, you can shoot at enemies and cool stuff like that. And then you have to find a good landing spot, and you have to discover new landing spots for you to land in and stuff like that. I think that would be a really cool concept for implementing some open world elements to Metroid Prime. So, and it would even be better as far as like adding new side quests. Metroid Prime never really had like side quests or anything like that. Start adding some, RPG elements to the game as well. Because here's the thing, Samus Aran is a bounty hunter, right? Well, if she's a bounty hunter, what the hell is she hunting for? What bounties does she ever hunt for? We always play these games, and it's like we never see her doing any bounty hunting. I think it would be great if there are multiple troopers, generals, whatever, who need something to be done, need a certain monster to be killed, certain, enemy pirates to be taken out, intel to be gathered, and you go to them. You take on those side quests, those side missions, and now you gotta fly to a different planet, fly to a different region, stuff like that. That would be so freaking awesome if they did something like that. And I think if they were to work with Monolith Soft Studios, it would definitely become a possibility. Now, another thing I want to talk about, another idea I want to put out there, is actually something that people were saying in my last video, whether they should actually make a third-person Metroid game. Some were trying to say that maybe they should just ditch Metroid Prime all entirely in favor of just third-person. I think there's so much potential for Metroid Prime and, just a Metroid first-person shooter that they don't have to just ditch it all entirely. But making a new spin-off Metroid series, or just making a new series that is in the third-person perspective, would be awesome. Whether they, stick to the original, 2D Metroid formula, but now it's in the third-person perspective, or they make a more action-oriented Metroid game. Now, if they were to make a more action-oriented Metroid game, here's what I think would be the best idea for that. Making the gameplay similar to Battalion Wars. If you guys are not that familiar with Battalion Wars, it's a Nintendo first-party exclusive where you're basically you're playing in a battlefield as soldiers. You have tanks, helicopters, other soldiers, other grunts around you, and you could switch between your soldiers, your tanks, and all of that. It's really cool. It's a really fun game, a really underrated Nintendo game right there. And I think that would be perfect for a spin-off Metroid game. That is more catered to people who just want to play a game that has lots of action in it, that's multiplayer. I think this would be perfect. Just think of The Legend of Zelda, Hyrule Warriors games, right? Hyrule Warriors, that's definitely not a traditional Zelda game at all. Plays nothing like the Legend of Zelda games. It's basically a game where you're slashing and mowing down hundreds and thousands of enemy soldiers on the battlefield. And it's just really fun. It's meant to be this game where you're running on this battlefield with other soldiers alongside you, killing all these enemies. You'll have these big boss battles. And they're very fun video games. The Hyrule Warrior games are extremely fun. Now, I think the best way to do something similar for Metroid would be something that's similar to Battalion Wars. That would be so freaking sick. A Metroid Battalion Wars type game. They could call it Metroid Federation Wars. And, it's basically you're on a big battlefield. You're all fighting against enemy pirates or other enemies. There's the occasional giant boss battles that come into play. There's moments where you guys have to escape from a giant military base that's about to explode or whatever. Cool stuff like that. Like, that would be freaking sick, wouldn't it? I think that would really be freaking awesome if they did something like that for a spin-off Metroid game. And I don't think there's a whole lot of people who can argue against that, except stupid purists who think that every Metroid game that has the word Metroid in the title has to play exactly like every other Metroid game. I think this would be something that would be great for the series, for the franchise. I think it would get a lot of people into the lore of Metroid, which could then translate to them being interested in playing the 2D and Metroid Prime games. So you guys let me know if you think that would be an awesome spin-off for like a Metroid game. I think it would be. I think that would be freaking sick. That would be awesome. I wonder who. I think maybe Koei Tecmo would probably be perfect, because Koei Tecmo are the ones that did Metroid Dread, and they're the ones that do the Hyrule Warriors games. So that would make perfect sense, actually. Koei Tecmo would be, the only thing is they don't have, what's funny is I mentioned Battalion Wars and how you can switch between players, switch between soldiers, you could then switch to a tank or whatever. Well, there's a little bit of similarity between that and what you do in the Hyrule Warriors games, because in Hyrule Warriors, you could switch between characters. You could go from playing as Link to then Zelda. If you're playing as the bad guys, you can switch from Ganondorf to some other villain that's out there on the battlefield fighting alongside you. The only difference is it's not as complex and as strategic as how they do it in Battalion Wars. Because in Battalion Wars, you have an entire, you got a whole, battalion of, soldiers, tanks, helicopters. You have more people on. You got a whole cavalry, in a sense, right? It's not just you and 4 big other characters, right? So I think that would be so freaking awesome, though, if Koei Tecmo was to make a battalion-type game with Metroid. You guys let me know, but I think that would be just freaking sick. I think another good idea for a spin-off Metroid game would be something similar to like Alien Isolation, or some type of like horror genre where there's a lot of suspense and, jump scares maybe. And the reason I think this would be great for a Metroid game, would be because of the game Metroid Dread, where you have a lot of moments where you cross paths with the Emmys. The Emmys being those robots with the big laser eyes, and those things, they originally were supposed to be the good guys, but they've been turned against you. And every time you go into a certain section of the game, those Emmys are there, present, roaming around, looking for you. And they really get very tense. Like the atmosphere, the music, everything is very suspenseful and scary. And when they see you, you pretty much have to go take off running, and you got to get away from them. You got to find the next exit or whatever in order to advance. Something like that would be super freaking awesome for like a spin-off Metroid game that's more like a survival type horror. Or maybe like an extraction mission. You're trying to save hostages, or you're trying to save some people that are in this abandoned laboratory or something that's been overrun by monsters. I think that would be really cool. So yeah, these are some of the ideas that I have for like a very good spin-off Metroid game, or the next Metroid game that could be a lot different from just the typical 2D and Metroid Prime game. And I think it's, we definitely need Metroid to get out of this freaking box that it's been in for far too long. We want more people to get into this franchise and this series. Metroid has some really good lore to it. It's a really fun sci-fi game, so why not just expand it? Why not make it better? Why not try to get more people into it? You're going to have to do things like this to get more people into it. I want to hear from you guys what you think would be great for the next Metroid game, for a spin-off Metroid game, or like a new series of third-person Metroid games that are supposed to play more similar to the 2D Metroid games, or maybe even a combination of 2D and first-person in the sense that, it's third-person, but you have a lot of the action from the 2D games and a good blend of the exploration and scanning from the first-person Metroid games. With all that being said, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will talk with all of you later.